Hello, my name is Bailey Wright. I work as a District 1 4-H program specialist, and we are back for our second part of Step 9 in the series 10 Steps to a Record Book. So if you've been with me from the beginning, we've made a lot of progress. You should be done with the report form part of the record book, and we've moved on to the story, your 4-H story and photo portfolio. Last week we talked more about the outline of the story, what you kind of needed to start gathering and wrapping your mind around to be able to truly put the story together, and we went a little more in depth on photos. So hopefully you've found some photos that you need or that you think would fit into your story. And that was part 1 of Step 9. Tonight we're going to do part 2 of Step 9, which is really focused more on the content of the story and kind of some more in-depth aspects of putting the story together. And then after this, we'll only have one more video left, and it'll just be kind of some of the fun details and making sure your record book is ready to submit to your agent. So we are almost done. Woohoo! Okay, so we'll get through tonight pretty quickly as well. I'm going to go ahead and jump in, and we'll just start working. Give me 1 second as we switch screens. Okay, so this might look familiar. I think I shared this last week as well. This is basically something that I've created. Just some questions. It kind of goes paragraph by paragraph from that outline. Let me reverse. Remember, this is the outline that we went over last week. So hopefully you've made some notes for each section. And I told y'all last week, I basically go each Roman numeral is what I would consider a different paragraph in my 4-H story. So hopefully you're prepared to kind of get started on that this week and putting that together. So here's that outline. Using that outline, I've created this, which is basically I go paragraph by paragraph and I put the questions that I think need to be answered in each paragraph. And before we get rolling too far into tonight, I want to make sure y'all know, and we've talked about this throughout our record book process, some of this is personal opinion and varies from person to person. So I absolutely want to make sure that y'all are working with your county agent throughout this record book process, getting their opinion, getting their feedback and help. But no, this is a lot of my personal opinion. And I know there may be people that disagree with it, and that's okay. I'm just here to share my opinion and what I think works. So to me, these are the questions you have to answer. Of course, you start off by introducing yourself, what grade you're in, tell us about your family and your community, when did you join 4-H and why did you join 4-H. But if you remember from last week, one of my hints was, I think you've got to have a catchy opening. So really before this introduction, I would have some sort of catchy opening. Then I would dive right into your main project. And from here on out, the paragraphs kind of go by project, that's going to vary depending on how many projects you have. So basically you introduce your project, how long you've been doing it, what your project goals were just for this past year. Tell us about some of the experiences you've had in that project. Basically, what have you done in this project? What have you learned? What skills have you learned? And what have you accomplished? So that's basically the same for all of your main projects. And then this is one, if you have several projects, I said you can kind of clump some of your smaller projects in there together. Same thing, tell us about that. And then leadership. If leadership isn't one of your main projects, you use a paragraph to talk about any leadership experiences you've had. That could be trainings you went to, camps, positions or roles that you've had, or just things that you've learned about leadership through being in 4-H, or leadership skills that you've acquired. And then your community service section, basically tell us about some of your biggest, best, or favorite community service efforts and projects you've done. What impact did those make on other people or on your community? And then what did you learn by completing those community service projects, or maybe what impact did they have on you? And then your last paragraph is going to be what I call the future paragraph. What are your future plans? What do you want to be when you grow up? Are you planning to attend college? What are your future goals? What are your 4-H goals for the next year? And then kind of wrap it up, and all in all, what have you gained from your whole 4-H experience? Again, if anyone wants these things in a PDF or Word document, I know some people are screenshotting these things or taking notes. Feel free to email your agent and ask them to email me, or you're free to email me as well if you want some of these documents I'm referencing. My email is bailey.wright@ag.tamu.edu. Okay, so as always, I'm going to show y'all a couple examples of 4-H stories, and we're going to talk about things I think they did really well and things that can maybe be improved on. So again, bear with me as I switch screens. Okay, we'll start with this one. Again, I told y'all last week, all of these are set to specific margins to fit in what we call our record book cover. Reference last week's video if you didn't catch up on that, or look it up in the Family Guide to Record Books. And that you could be a little more creative in terms of like your title, not what your title is. Remember, your title is definitely my 4-H and then whatever category, story and photo portfolio. But in terms of font, some people, I told y'all, do borders or maybe clovers here. I think all that's great. I'll be honest with y'all, on a 4-H story, I like a little bit of a border. I think it's classy looking. Ooh, I'm afraid I just switched screens. Sorry, y'all. Technical difficulties. Maybe I didn't. Maybe it's just showing weird on my screen, but okay, I think we're back. Maybe that was just my side. Back to what I was saying. I like a subtle border. I think it's classy. I think in terms of being really competitive, maybe it breaks up the monotony of looking at several 4-H stories in a row. Maybe it's a little eye-catching. I don't know. I like a simple border. Okay, so here's what she do. I can't talk tonight. Here's what she does. She starts out with a little bit, I wouldn't say her story is themed, but she introduces it in a different way a little bit. She says, I'm here, I finally made it over the 9 years. After my first 4-H meeting, what seems like a million practices, meetings, and contests later, here I am. Kind of a catchy intro. I mean, it's probably not the most creative, but it definitely isn't just, hello, I'm Bailey Wright, a 9-year 4-H member. I mean, yeah, I like it. It makes you want to keep reading. She talks about Roundup. Basically, from this, we get her main goal is she wanted to be on state council, and wow, this year she accomplished it, and she's on state council. So I like that. She uses some subtitles. I'll be honest, I like subtitles. I think they're easier. It makes the 4-H story easier to judge as a record book judge. It's a little easier to follow. It breaks up your 4-H story a little bit better. I also think sometimes it's easier to write when you use subtitles, but that isn't a have to or don't have to. But that's my personal opinion, is I like the use of subtitles. So I'll just throw that out there. So then she introduces herself to us. She's a member of Dallam County 4-H. She's a 9-year 4-H'er. A little bit of just what she's serving this year. The past year she was first vice. She just got elected to president of her club. She also just finished up serving as a district council, her county council, all that good stuff. So she kind of introduces us a little there. I would have liked, I'm not seeing, okay, yeah, she kind of does it here. Honestly, I think she could have left out, that doesn't bother me, but there's some sticklers who say your 4-H record book is your 4-H record book, only talk about 4-H in your 4-H record book. So she could have left out some of this school stuff to me. I don't know, just doesn't really do anything for me. Talks about how she became involved in 4-H. I kind of like it. She tells a little bit of a story about working with her friend's goat. Kind of breaks it up there. Project goals. I know I definitely talked about this in the last video. This is something I'm passionate about. Project goals are things that I think some people overlook in terms of writing your 4-H story. I'm big on it. I want to see your goals in your 4-H story. She does it a little differently than maybe what I like. She does a whole paragraph devoted to just project goals, which I do not think is bad. What I wish she would have done is I wish her goals would have been, the only word that's coming to my mind is meaty. I wish her goals would have had a little more meat to them. Let's read this paragraph. She introduces it a little bit. By doing this, I hope to be able to pinpoint exactly what I wanted to pursue in 4-H. My goals were to focus on project work more than actual contests. That's not a bad goal. And do as much leadership and community service as I could fit into my schedule. Not a bad goal either. So I looked at the list of projects and discussed which one with my 4-H agent. We decided leadership would be perfect. Blah, blah, blah. I was also getting ready to serve in many leadership positions. So basically her goals were, she wants to do more project work than contests, and she wants to do more leadership and community service activities. Those are great goals. There's nothing wrong with those goals. It's just not meaty enough. Most people have heard this by now, but your goal should be SMART, S being specific, measurable, A being achievable, R being realistic, and T being time-based. So to me, goals like that are a little more meaty. Like I would have liked for her to say, I was going to focus on more project work than contests by attending 7 swine project meetings, 3 food and nutrition project. Give me something, some meat there. Do as much leadership as in community service, but saying I was going to participate in monthly community service events and lead a canned food drive this winter. Give me some meat there. Leadership. I was going to serve in X, Y, and Z. And I was also going to attend a leadership training to try and sharpen my teamwork skills. I don't know. I just wish hers would have been meatier. Okay, anywho, I'll get off of my rant there. Her leadership project, she's really good. It talks about everything she's done. She talks about some of her time on Texas 4-H Council, things that were done there. She talks about leading a workshop and completing a personality test where she learned about some of her own leadership traits. I think all that's great. She talks about working with other groups like FFA officers and FCCLA officers. Talks about everything they did at Roundup. Then she goes into some of her other leadership roles, talking about livestock ambassador, working validation, booths, path to play. Here's what I'm going to say. This is good. This leadership section's good, and it's her biggest project. It's her project she chose to focus on, and it takes up like 2 pages, and I'm very big on that. Your first project should be your biggest, best, take up the most space. Your second one, take up the second most space, so on and so on. Here's my thing on the story. As much detail as we know that report form is hard to put a ton of detail in. You have to be a little vague there, a little broad. As much detail as you can put in your 4-H story, the better you're going to be in terms of a competitive standpoint. So let's just take this. She talks about, I helped plan a path to plate event. She could have really expanded, and I know it's hard to expand on every single thing and say, a path to plate event where we had over 200 people from our community come together. We showcased 6 different producers in the area of dairy, corn, beef, pork. I don't know. She could have gone in depth more. And what did she really do there? She greeted people. She worked one of the booths and shared beef facts. I mean, I don't know. As in-depth as you can go, that's best. Again, she uses subtitles. She's going into her next project. I like that so much because it's so easy to follow. She talked about her public speaking project. Here's the deal on the goals. Going back to the goals. I think it's okay if you're going to do just 1 paragraph designated to goals, but those goals then should have pertained to each project. Because really, those goals that we saw in that paragraph, not only were they kind of vague in general, but it really only talked more about her leadership project. So we don't know what her goals were for her public speaking project. Because here she talks about what she did and what she accomplished, what she learned. That's great, but I'm going to show y'all another way that I think goals should be done, because now for all these other projects that are great, we don't really know what her goals were. So she goes through some other projects that she has. Leadership was one of her main projects. It was her main project, so that's why she didn't have an additional leadership paragraph here. She taught community service a lot in the beginning and a lot throughout her leadership project. Still, I would have liked to see a community service paragraph right here. Then she does her end of year summary. Talks about what a great year she had in 4-H, how much she loved serving on council and being an ambassador, how 4-H has shaped her. Know that 4-H will prepare for the future. Again, I would have liked for her to have a few meaty goals and said, here's my goals for next year in 4-H. But all in all, a good story there. I would have liked page numbers. Again, this is something super nitpicky, but I like page numbers. Oh, she has them. My bad. I won't nitpick her. They're just a little white. My eyes aren't working great. I like page numbers. Okay, so I'm going to show y'all. Actually, before I move on to that one, there's one thing I want to address. There was a question after my last video. I got this question about basically color coding. I would say it's a trend that we've seen in some senior books that go on to state. I don't know, and I've addressed this a few times throughout this whole video series and in these 10 videos. Sometimes I really think less is more. I think some of the really funky formatting and colors are best done in moderation. I have seen a couple books that I like that have been color coded, and so they would have had subtitles pretty similar to this book. So let's say basically you choose a color for every project. So let's say public speaking was purple. She would have had this text done in purple here, this public speaking project. The font would have been purple, and then in her report form, in that project experiences section, the first section we did, public speaking would have been purple there as well. And leadership might have been, this might have been the font might have been blue here, and then blue in that project experiences page. I do like that. I don't dislike it. I'm so torn here, y'all. I don't dislike it. I thought that book that I saw was well done in terms of one being color coded. It wasn't too overwhelming. But if we're being honest, I don't know exactly what the purpose of it is, other than maybe with some judges it gets you creativity points. Maybe it makes your book a little easier to remember or stand out. But other than that, I don't know what the purpose of it is. And I'm not against it, but I'm also not like, yes, we all need to start color coding our books in D1. So someone had asked me that question, so I thought I would address it. I don't know exactly where I stand on that. I'm not majorly for it, but I'm certainly not against it either. But I do believe if it's done, it needs to be done tastefully. Okay, I'm going to show y'all the other example. In terms of, I keep saying that, and then I keep deciding not to. In terms of length of this story, I think this is plenty acceptable in terms of not being too long, not being too short for a senior record book. Hers was just barely 9 pages. Okay, now I'm for real going to show y'all the next one. This one, in my opinion, is a little shorter. It is 7 pages, but there's quite a bit of space. It's just a little shorter for a competitive senior book, in my opinion. I like his intro. Again, this one's obviously plant soil science. Again, I would have liked to see a little bit of a border. I like that. Also, one thing I'll nitpick, I think I talked about this last week. I like captions. She had captions on her picture. And he doesn't. I personally really like captions on a picture. Again, you're not going to lose points if you don't, but maybe maybe it helps you somewhere. I think captions are good. That's all I'm going to say. I also like when these photos have a little bit of a border to them. Again, those are nitpicky things, but if you're in high school trying to win that trip to DC, maybe those are things that might help you. But I like his intro. His intro is really catchy and kind of immediately gets your attention and kind of sets a theme for his record book. So hopefully y'all can read that there. I won't read it to you. He does not use subtitles. However, he does use some bolding to help you follow along. So we'll see that. He introduces himself, where he lives, about his siblings and his parents. He doesn't really talk about how he got started in 4-H. I would have liked to see that. He does talk about shifting from livestock-based projects to his main focus being plant soil science project, and that's kind of where his first paragraph about his main project takes place. I like his because he's pretty detailed in it. Some of his wordage, his language, his verbs could have been a little better for the senior level, but you can definitely tell it was sincere. Okay, I like his goals better. So his goals for this year were, this is how I like goals formatted. Not everyone does. I do. I like them bold. I like them bullet pointed. And I like this done. I don't think he does this, but I like it done like this for every project. He kind of does broad goals for all of his 4-H projects. I don't love that he did broad goals for all of his 4-H projects in the middle of his plant and soil science paragraph, which to me really isn't even a paragraph. Honestly, we should enter right there and make that a paragraph and plant and soil science project, but then his goals are in the middle of the paragraph, which would have been fine if these goals just pertain to that first project, which is how I wish they would have been done. But I do think his goals are a little meatier, and they kind of follow that acronym of SMART goals. His goals were to start taking courses towards his pilot license. I think that's good. Get more experience doing these things. That's a good one, but like how? What are you going to do to get more experience? I like this one. Improve on my heifer showmanship skills by practicing showmanship at least 3 times a week. See, that's a SMART goal. To do more community service through 4-H. That's not a SMART goal. That's too broad. But in terms of formatting, this is how I like the goals formatted. I wish this would have read like my plant and soil science project goals for this year were, and then boom, give me 4 SMART plant and soil science goals. And then you talk about in this basically things you did to meet those goals, or why it's okay if you failed at one goal, or why you didn't meet those goals. Then he comes into his beef project. I would have liked to basically copy and paste this formatting, boom, right here, pretty close to the beginning of beef, maybe after my original project was beef. Oh, okay, hit it in there somewhere at the beginning, and give me, since this was his main project and he did 4, maybe this is his second main project, give me 3 beef project goals for the year. Then he comes to vet science. Maybe it's a smaller one, obviously. Maybe give me 2 vet science goals. And shooting sports, another smaller one. Maybe give me 2 shooting sports goals there. Even if leadership isn't one of your main projects and you have it in here, you're going to have a leadership paragraph in here regardless. In my opinion, I think you should maybe hit me with 1 or 2 leadership goals, even if it wasn't technically one of the main projects you're highlighting. Hopefully that made sense. I really wanted to use that as an example, that I like that format. I think some of his goals could have been smarter goals, using that acronym, and I like them for each project. So I think this is good. He talks a lot about that plant and soil science one, really what he did there. He talks good. This is good. He talks about medicating his heifers during calving season, how that goes. He didn't really talk about shows. Again, the more detail, the better. Vet science. And he did an artificial insemination class. That's great. Again, the more details, the better. I do like, this is a good detail though. I like details like this. I learned that the cervix can be a little tricky to navigate through. I mean, just little, if there's little details where we can tell, oh wow, that kid really did do that and really did learn something, those are great. Okay, he goes into his leadership. Good community service. Yeah, those are good. Again, I would like to see more impact, or to be able to, yeah, I would like for him to portray or to have written more about how those he mentioned some great activities, how those impacted others. And see, I like this. What his goals are for next year: obtain his pilot's license, graduate high school with 3.5 GPA, increase my 4-H leadership so that I can receive a 4-H scholarship. Again, it would have been like a how. What are you going to do to increase that leadership? Win a showmanship class with my heifer, continue touring colleges. I mean, I think that's pretty good. This was a shorter story. Just really could have expanded on some of those project experiences. You'll see, I don't mind how he bolded those to show us that he was changing a paragraph. I still probably prefer subtitles just because for my brain that's easier to follow. But I don't think this was a bad story either, especially for, he was a senior, but he wasn't really trying to be competitive with record books. He was doing it for some awards at his county level, and for record keeping purposes and more so scholarship purposes, not really to be competitive. But I think this is a good book to model some. I think this book would be really competitive in like the intermediate level or junior level, and so might help you model some of that there. Again, I'm glad to share some of these stories with y'all for examples. Hopefully y'all saw some things that I liked and some things that I think could be done better. But hopefully this will help y'all in terms of starting to put your 4-H stories together. Next week, we will go over some of those fun final touches of putting your book together and things to just go back there and double check and make sure you're ready to turn your record book in. Thank y'all for bearing with me. I hope these examples are helpful. Again, if you need more examples, I think tons of county agents have plenty of record book examples that they can share and so much record book knowledge to share with y'all. Make sure you're reaching out to your local county agent. Thanks. Have a great day.